Good to see all of you here. I know a lot of people are our guests. Some people drove a long way. Did anybody drive more than 100 miles? Raise your hand to come to this. You drove more than 100 miles? You must not have internet. Because we've already received questions from as far away as Norway, from people going to be watching on the internet, and it's on live stream, and we're glad you're here. People say, why do you do this in a Baptist church? There are two reasons. Reason number one, we believe that God wrote the Bible, and we believe that God is the author of creation. And therefore, we don't believe there's a dichotomy there. We don't believe that you have to choose either religion or science or reality. We don't believe you have to choose between the Bible and creation, which is the substance of science. And so therefore, we don't fear, because God is the author of both books. The second reason is, every objection to the existence of God that you're going to hear tonight, you're going to hear out there. If you haven't already heard them, you're going to hear them out there. But tonight, you're going to hear a response to them, okay? You're not going to hear them in a vacuum. You're going to hear a response to them. So, we are so grateful to have Dr. Frank Turek and David Silverman here with us. We have had a blast today. Two very kind and gracious men, and we're grateful that they are willing to spend this evening with us, and you're going to learn a little bit more about them in just a moment. But we're glad you're here, and we're glad that you're not afraid to consider the big questions, because if God truly is the author of both, we have nothing to fear. I want to introduce you now to a friend of mine, Chan Heron. Chan is also an apologist, somebody who is able to defend the truth claims of Christianity very well. I've had a lot of interaction with Chan. Chan's also a member of our Broadmoor family, and Chan will be our moderator tonight. Welcome, Chan Heron.
Well, good evening. There is no better place to be in Shreveport, Louisiana than right here at Broadmoor Baptist Church this evening. So thank you for coming. Thank you for those people that are in the Worship Center South who are watching on the big screens, as well as those that are watching live stream from our website. And you are in for a treat tonight. Listen, I had lunch with these guys today, and I got to see the pre-debate. And if tonight is anything like the pre-debate, wow, it's going to be fun and it's going to be entertaining. I'm curious. Raise your hand if you identify yourself as a free thinker, skeptic, atheist, agnostic, seeker. Fantastic. Welcome. Great. Thank you for coming. Raise your hand if you identify yourself as a theist, Christian, believer. All right. Hopefully we'll be able to have a dialogue between these two groups. Now, I know what some of the theists are thinking right now. They're thinking, why in the world would our pastor invite an atheist to the church, much less the president of the American Atheists? That's the first thing you're thinking. The second thing you're thinking is, well, since he's here, I might as well watch him get creamed. And I know what the atheists are thinking too. There's no better place than to watch theism collapse than in the Southern Baptist Church. That's what the atheists are thinking. Now, I'm going to ask everyone to lay down their weapons. To lay down their weapons tonight and do something that does not come easy. First, to theists, I'm going to ask you not to tune out Mr. Silverman when he gets up. I want you to really listen to his arguments, his rebuttals, analyze them. Don't simply dismiss them because he represents atheism. You don't have to agree with an idea to entertain it. Now, to the atheists and agnostics, I'm going to ask you to put out of your mind the religious slogans that you've heard over the years, the appeals to blind faith, the conversations gone wrong with theists. And listen to Dr. Turek as he makes the arguments too. You don't have to agree with an idea to entertain it. The primary purpose of reason is to help us discover what is true. And the primary tool of reason is argument. And an argument is a specific kind of thing. I want you to think of it like a simple house, a roof supported by walls. The roof is the conclusion and the walls are the supporting ideas. If the walls are solid, the conclusion rests securely on its supporting structure. If the walls collapse, the roof comes down and the argument is defeated. The task of critical thinking this evening is to weed out distracting or irrelevant details so you have a clear view of the core argument and you can assess its strengths. So tonight, as you listen to both sides of the debate, I want you to ask yourself 4 questions of the presenters. Number 1, what is the claim that's being made? Number 2, what are the reasons given to support the claim? Number 3, ask yourself, are there any distracting or irrelevant details? And 4, does the conclusion follow from the evidence? And I believe that these 4 questions will guide you in determining which way the evidence points. So here's how the debate is going to work. The topic for tonight's debate is this: which better explains reality, atheism or theism? Mr. Silverman would argue that atheism better explains reality, and Dr. Turek will argue that theism better explains reality. Now, each presenter will begin with a 20-minute opening statement, followed by a 10-minute rebuttal. Then we'll have 3 rounds of 5-minute crossfires where they'll get to question and answer each other. The clock will not start until they're going to get their greetings and their pleasantries out, and then they will continue to crossfire each other, and I'll start the clock on the opening statement. Now, this is where you get to participate tonight. Anytime during the debate, you may ask a question 2 ways. 1, via text message. You can text your question to the number 25827 with the word reality as the first word in the question, followed by the name to whom the question is addressed. For example, you'd say 25827, reality, Frank. What do you mean by... If you want to ask one to both, please put both in there. Now, we don't want lectures. While honing his debating skills with theists in numerous informal debates. After earning his MBA from Penn State, Dave served as a professional inventor at Bell Labs for 8 years. He has 74 issued patents. And a marketing director for Natural Microsystems. He has been an atheist since he was 6 years old. Dave became an activist in 1996 and soon became New Jersey State Director. He also founded the Alliance of Lucent and AT&T Atheists and Secularists, the first employee club of its kind. He was tapped to be the national spokesperson in 2004 and then was named vice president in 2008. The board of directors elected Dave as president in September of 2010. Dave has appeared on most major news programs, including the O'Reilly Factor, Hannity, Scarborough Country, The Situation Room with Wolf Blitzer, CNN's Paula Zahn Now, Nick News, Fox and Friends, NPR's All Things Considered, and many more. Would you please welcome Mr. David Silverman. Dr. Frank Turek is a dynamic speaker and award-winning author and co-author of 3 books, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist, and others. As the president of CrossExamine.org, Frank impacts young and old alike at colleges, high schools, and churches with hard yet entertaining evidence for Christianity. He hosts an hour-long TV program each week called I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist that is broadcast Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. and 1 a.m. Eastern on DirecTV Channel 378. His radio program called Cross-Examined with Frank Turek airs on 144 stations every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. That's 91.7 here. Frank also writes a column for townhall.com and has appeared on many TV and radio programs, including The O'Reilly Factor, Hannity and Combs, Faith Under Fire, Politically Incorrect, The Bible Answer Man, and Focus on the Family. He has debated atheist Christopher Hitchens twice. A former aviator in the U.S. Navy, Frank has a master's from George Washington University and a doctorate in apologetics from Southern Evangelical Seminary. To help reverse the exodus of young people from the Christian faith, Frank conducts dynamic I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist seminars on campuses. At these events, Frank presents the evidence for Christianity and cross-examines arguments against it. Would you please welcome Dr. Frank Turek? And now Frank will begin with his 20-minute opening statement.
Thank you, Chan. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been told that there are more Baptists in Louisiana than there are people. And I can see that looks like the case. Thank you for coming out tonight. Thanks for Chan for arranging this. And of course, Pastor Chuck and the entire team here. We've got Alan and Ronnie on tech. We've got some unusual tech situations here, and they've really worked hard to make this happen. So I want to thank you very much. Now, Christians, you're going to like David Silverman. He is a great speaker. I've had some good times with him today. He's a very confident speaker, and so please listen to him. I'm from New Jersey. I grew up there. I escaped. He's since moved to New Jersey, so we may question his judgment a little bit there. But we are both very fast talkers, so I'm warning you right now, you cannot listen in Southern, okay? You can't do it. You won't be able to keep up. And by the way, this is a debate, so we're only going to scratch the surface here. We can't give a lot of evidence. We don't have a lot of time. David and I both have a lot more to say than we can say here. So if you really want to go deeper, I recommend you get our books. My book is available on the book table out here. David's book is coming out in December. It's called I, Atheist, so it'd make a good winter solstice gift. You may want to get that. And I want to point out, by the way, that all the proceeds from the sale of the books and the DVDs and the curriculum will go to feed needy children. Mine. Okay? Just so you know, I got 3 sons, so I need some help here, all right? So hopefully we'll have some fun here tonight. All right, let's get started. What better explains reality, theism or atheism? David and I are both trying to explain the world around us. We both in this debate have the burden of proof to explain why the world is or why the universe is or why reality is the way it is. I have to give evidence that theism better explains it, and he has to give evidence that atheism better explains it. Now, I'm going to define our terms here. Let me define theism. Theism is the belief that a spaceless, timeless, immaterial, powerful, moral, personal, intelligent being is the ground of all reality. All that exists. And I'm going to give evidence for a theistic God, a God that Aristotle would call the unmoved mover, a God that the Jews and the Christians would call Yahweh, although I'm not going to be able to get into Christianity here, we don't have enough time, but a God consistent with the God of the Bible. Atheism, on the other hand, says no such being exists. Material reality is all that exists. Now, here is my thesis. My thesis is that since many aspects of reality are immaterial, not merely material, atheism cannot be true. Theism better explains what we actually perceive about reality. Now, what is the evidence here that reality is better explained by theism? Here's some of the evidence. It's in an acrostic, CRIMES, C-R-I-M-E-S, and hopefully this will help you remember what I'm trying to say here. We'll start with the C, the cosmos, that the universe had a beginning. Now, many people call this the Big Bang. Now, I should have had sound for that. I had the coolest sound effect. Can we try that again, Ronnie? This is evidence of what we call the Big. I'm sorry, the sound's not working. Anyway, we're supposed to go bang, and you're all supposed to go wow. Now, a lot of Christians are afraid of the Big Bang. They don't believe in the Big Bang. Look, I believe in the Big Bang. I just know who banged it, okay? The evidence for the Big Bang is quite good. You even have agnostic astronomers like Paul Davies from Arizona State University saying this: the Big Bang represents the creation event, the creation not only of all the matter and energy in the universe, but also of space-time itself. That space-time and matter had a beginning out of nothing. This is Alexander Vilenkin from Tufts University. In 2003, he teamed up with Alan Guth and one other cosmologist to basically, according to him, prove that the universe had a beginning. Now, Vilenkin is even a believer in the multiverse, that there are many universes out there, but he says even if there are, the whole show needs an absolute beginning. He actually uses the word proof. Here's what he said. With the proof now in place, cosmologists can no longer hide behind the possibility of a past eternal universe. There is now no escape. They have to face the problem of a cosmic beginning. Now, this beginning was not some sort of random explosion. This was a highly fine-tuned, guided event. In fact, from the very beginning, the expansion rate of the universe, if the expansion rate of the universe was different by 1 part in 1,000 million, a second after the Big Bang, the universe would have collapsed back on itself or never developed galaxies. You change the expansion rate, that infinitesimal amount, we're not here. In fact, the expansion rate right now is fine-tuned. So is the gravitational force. If it were altered by more than 1 in 10 to the 40, we wouldn't be here. Now, what is that? Well, that's 1 part in 1 with 40 zeros following it. You say, Frank, I can't get my head around it. No, I can't either. Let me give you an illustration. Take a tape measure and stretch it across the entire known universe. By the way, that's a long way. Set the gravitational force at a particular inch mark on that tape measure. I realize gravity is not measured in inches. This is just give you a scale idea in your mind. If you were to move the strength of gravity 1 inch in either direction, we wouldn't be here. Now, there's only 3 possibilities for why that value is the way it is. Physical necessity, it had to be there. Well, no, it didn't have to be there. It could have been here, could have been here, could have been 1,000 miles that way. Chance, which really isn't a cause at all. It's just a word we use to describe mathematical possibilities. I don't have enough faith to believe that it just happened to be right there. The third possibility is design, that somebody designed it to be right there. And when you look at all the other constants that are fine-tuned, that seems to make the most sense. In fact, Arno Penzias, a Nobel laureate, he won a Nobel Prize in physics for discovering the remnant heat from the Big Bang called the radiation afterglow. Here's what Penzias said. He said, astronomy leads us to a unique event, a universe which was created out of nothing, one with the very delicate balance needed to provide exactly the right conditions required to permit life, and one which has an underlying, one might say, supernatural plan. So this is a highly fine-tuned event. Now, if the universe had a beginning, then it must have had a beginner. The evidence leaves us with one of the following 2 options. Either no one created something out of nothing, which is the atheistic view, or someone created something out of nothing, which is the theistic view. Now, my only question is, which view is more reasonable? That no one created something out of nothing, or that someone created something out of nothing? Seems to me someone. Now, you can ask who made the someone, but it turns out that if this being created space, time, and matter, the being must be spaceless, timeless, and immaterial. Now, if you're timeless, do you have a beginning? No. The cause of the universe is the uncaused first cause. So who made God? Nobody. He's uncaused. He's outside of time. Now, I say, which view is more reasonable? Because the second line of evidence in crimes is reason. Now, David ran the Reason Rally, in fact, organized it in D.C. Richard Dawkins, many other atheists showed up. There's one little problem, though. If you're an atheist, you can't justify reason. In fact, Darwin knew this. If our minds evolved by an unguided process, our brains evolved from an unguided process, Darwin realized the problem. Here was his doubt. He said, with me, the horrid doubt always arises whether the convictions of man's mind, which has been developed from the mind of lower animals, are of any value or at all trustworthy. Would anyone trust in the convictions of a monkey's mind if there are any convictions in such a mind? Why should you believe your mind or your brain if we evolve with unguided processes? And if we're just molecules in motion, we shouldn't believe anything we think. See, atheism cannot explain our ability to reason. Theism can. Here's why. If atheism is true, our minds are just molecular machines, which means we don't have free will, which means we don't reason, we merely react. Therefore, we shouldn't trust any of our thoughts, including the thought that atheism is true. So atheists are fond of calling themselves free thinkers. The problem is there's no freedom and there's no thinking going on, because you don't have free will and you can't really think, or you can't justify thinking, because we're just molecules in motion. Now, the I in crimes stands for information. And this takes us to the information at the very basis of life. You see this? This is a one-celled amoeba. The Darwinists say we all evolved from a one-celled amoeba. The theory of macroevolution, you've heard it, from the goo to you via the zoo. Well, this is the goo. Now, in Darwin's day, nobody knew what was in a cell. Today, we know. Now, before we look at the cell, realize there's an important observation here. It doesn't say made by God or made by natural forces on it, does it? So what do you have to do? You have to make an interpretation. You have to look at the data and make an interpretation. By the way, that's why science doesn't say anything scientists do. All data needs to be interpreted. So how do we interpret the data? Darwin did not have the luxury of knowing what was in the cell. Today we do. In fact, in order to explain this, let me take you to your breakfast table. Suppose you love alphabet cereal. You're a teenager, and one day you come downstairs to have a bowl of alphabet cereal, and you see the cereal's knocked over on the table, and right in the middle of the table, the letters spell, "Take out the garbage, Mom." What are you going to assume? The cat knocked the box over? Earthquake shook the house? No, you're going to say that that's intelligent design from an intelligent being, Mom. Or let's say you're walking along the beach and you see in the sand, "John loves Mary." What do you assume? The waves did that? Crabs came out of the water and made that message? No, you're going to say that there had to be an intelligent being there because you know in all your prior experience that messages only come from minds. They don't come from repetitive natural forces. Well, if messages only come from minds, where does this message come from? DNA. Every living thing has DNA. You have DNA. I have DNA. A banana has DNA. Now, what is DNA? Actually, Bill Gates, who, as you know, is no Christian, put it this way. He said, DNA is like a computer program, but far, far more advanced than any software ever created. DNA is immaterial. It's an immaterial code. Yes, it's expressed in materials, but the order in which the letters appear is not determined by any chemical, biological, or physical process. It's like a software code. Where I come from, codes always come from coders. Microsoft Word was coded, despite the fact that it breaks down a lot, right? So here's the question, or here's the point. DNA is like a message. It's like Take Out the Garbage Mom, except it's a lot longer than Take Out the Garbage Mom. In fact, your DNA has about 3 billion characters in it, all in the right order, save a few mutations. Now, the question is, how much DNA is in an amoeba? Because you could say, well, maybe it evolved. Maybe it started small and got here, and, you know, this code just evolved itself. Before I tell you how much is in an amoeba, let me point out that in an amoeba, you could line up several hundred amoebas in an inch. So we're talking about a microscopic little creature here. And in an amoeba, you have about 1,000 volumes of an encyclopedia worth of information in there. Now, to believe that that resulted by natural forces is like believing that the Library of Congress resulted from an explosion in a printing shop, okay? I don't have enough faith to believe that. Information in life seems to require an intelligent cause. Now, who told me this? Not some Christian. You know who told me this? Richard Dawkins. He's the one that said there's this much information in an amoeba, and he's, of course, probably the leading atheist in the world right now. The M in crime stands for morality. A couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to visit the Buchenwald concentration camp. 68 years ago this month, the Allies liberated the camp. They went through the front gate, which is still there. They looked to the right, they saw the crematorium, which is still there. They got down to the crematorium, and then they looked into the courtyard attached to the crematorium, and this is what they saw. Brace yourself. Now, if there is no God, this is just a matter of opinion. Why? Because if there's no God, if there's no standard beyond humanity, then this is just your opinion against Hitler's opinion. If there's no standard beyond us, then we're just left with opinions. There are no objective moral rights or objective moral wrongs. In fact, if God does not exist, the Nazis were not wrong. It's just your opinion that they were wrong. If God does not exist, love is no better than rape. Not in an objective way, anyway. You just may not like it. It's just unfashionable, perhaps, but it's not really wrong. If God does not exist, blowing up innocent people watching a marathon is morally no different than feeding the poor. It's just your opinion. If God does not exist, religious crusades are not wrong. I had the opportunity to debate Christopher Hitchens a couple times. I love Christopher Hitchens. He was great. We had a lot of fun. He had a British accent, so he sounded even more brilliant than he was. And you could see both our debates on our website, crossexamined.org, for free. And Hitchens kept talking about all the evil religious people were doing in the Crusades. I say, Christopher, I agree with you. Exactly. But you know what? There's nothing wrong with that if there's no God. Because there's no standard of righteousness. If there's no standard of righteousness, nothing can be unrighteous. In fact, tolerance is no better than intolerance. David, with his organization, rightfully fights for tolerance for atheists. But look, if there's no God, why tolerate anything? Because there is no, in fact, there are no human rights if there is no God. Everything is a matter of opinion. If we're just overgrown germs that got here by some evolutionary process, then we're no different than any other animal. There is no objective morality if there is no God. Now, by the way, I didn't say atheists weren't good people. I didn't say atheists couldn't know morality. What I'm saying here is atheists can't justify morality. Now, let me move on to evil. You're going, wait, he's supposed to bring that up. Evil's an argument against God. Actually, let's take a look at it a little bit more closely. In fact, let's draw a two-column chart here. Does God exist? Yes and no. I've just given some of the evidence that God does exist: creation, design of the universe, reason, which include the laws of logic, information, and morality. Let me add a couple more. I briefly mentioned free will. We have free will. That can't be explained in an atheistic worldview, because if we're just molecules in motion, we really don't have freedom. We're not really making choices. We're just reacting to previous physical causes. The laws of nature. You ever wonder why the laws of nature are so precise? Why can we take a rover and put it on Mars with absolute precision? Who's holding this universe together? Why are the four fundamental forces so predictable and so precise? It seems like something's holding this all together right now. In fact, as you know, the Christian view of God is not just that he created the universe, but he's sustaining it right now. In fact, this is Aristotle's view. Somebody's holding the universe together right now. God is to the universe as a symphony is to music. Once the symphony stops playing, the music's over. Somebody's holding the universe together right now. Now, on the other side, you'd say evil. If there is a good God, why is all this evil in the world? Well, it turns out that evil is not an argument against God. Evil actually turns out to be an argument for God. Why? Because objective evil presupposes objective good, and objective good requires God. In fact, C.S. Lewis, who was an atheist for a period of time because he thought the world was too unjust, realized that didn't make any sense. Here's what he wrote in Mere Christianity after he became a Christian. He said, as an atheist, my argument against God was that the universe seems so cruel and unjust. But how had I got this idea of just and unjust? A man does not call a line crooked unless he has some idea of a straight line. What was I comparing this universe with when I called it unjust? There's no such thing as injustice unless there's such a thing as justice, and there's no such thing as justice unless there's a standard outside of ourselves that's objective and doesn't change. In fact, we could say it this way: the shadows prove the sunshine. In order to have shadows, you have to have sunshine. In order to have evil, you have to have good. Oh, you can have good without evil. You can have sunshine without shadows, but you can't have evil without good. You can't have shadows without sunshine. So let's adjust our chart. Actually, I think evil we can actually put on the yes side of the ledger. Now, this doesn't explain everything about evil, quite obviously, but the whole idea that there is evil points to good, and good only exists if God exists. Now, the S, science. He's going to bring up science. Actually, no, science does not help the atheists. In fact, science can't be done if atheism is true. In fact, Einstein asked an interesting question. To why can we do science? Here's what Einstein said: the most incomprehensible thing about the world is that it is at all comprehensible. Why is the world comprehensible? Why can we appropriate knowledge about the world and then draw conclusions about the world? Only if theism is true, or at least some immaterial reality is true, can we even do science. Because science is built on a foundation of immaterial realities that theism, not atheism, can explain. In fact, here are many things that atheism can explain but are required to do science. Orderly natural laws, we already talked about that. The law of causality. You can't prove the law of causality by doing a science experiment. You have to assume the law of causality in order to do a science experiment. That's what science does. It looks for causes. The laws of logic that we're using right now to even understand one another. You can't prove them by science. You have to assume them in order to do science. Reason, the ability to reason, we've already talked about that. Free will, we've talked about that. You got to be able to freely evaluate the data and come to a conclusion, because science doesn't say anything, scientists do. Also, realism, that's the idea that we can appropriate through our senses truth about the real world and then draw conclusions from it. Well, that requires having free will, having reason, having these laws of logic. These are all immaterial realities that don't exist if just a material view of the world, i.e. atheism, is true. Finally, morality. We can't even trust scientists unless they're ethical and tell us the results of their experiments truthfully and honestly. You can't prove that by science. You have to assume the scientists are ethical. You can't put honesty in a test tube. All of these things right here are immaterial realities that can't exist if atheism's true. So science isn't a friend of atheism. In fact, it's quite often thought that Christianity or theism's at war with science. Atheism is at war with science, because you can't do science if atheism's true. Now, reality is better explained by crimes: cosmos, reason, information, morality, evil, and science. There are other arguments as well, but I'm running out of time. In fact, let's just take these first four and draw some conclusions about the first cause. From these four aspects of reality, we can reason from effect to cause to learn that God has certain attributes. We're reasoning from effect to cause. We have an effect, we try and figure out what the cause is. From the cosmos, we can see that this being is immaterial, timeless, and spaceless. Why? Because he created material, time, and space. We can also see that he's extremely powerful because he created out of nothing. Do you realize every time we create something, we create out of pre-existing material? God creates out of nothing. What is nothing? Aristotle had a good definition of nothing. He said nothing is what rocks dream about. That's nothing. No space, no matter, no time. From reason, we know that this being is rational, and we can trust our reason then because it ultimately comes from him, not some mindless process. From information or design, we can see that this being is extremely intelligent. He has purpose. From the moral argument, we can see he's absolutely morally perfect, and he's also personal. How do we know he's personal from the moral argument? Because you only have a moral obligation to personal forces. You don't, or to personal forces. You don't have a moral obligation to impersonal forces. When you go try and dunk a basketball, you're not sinning against the law of gravity. We also know he's personal from the cosmological argument, or from the cosmos. Why? Because in order to go from a state of nothingness to a state of existence, someone had to make a choice. And only persons make choices. Gravity doesn't decide to do anything. Gravity doesn't say, look, if he drops that remote one more time, I'm not going to pull it or push it to the ground, right? Gravity does the same thing over and over again, but to go from a state of nothingness to a state of existence, someone had to make a choice. Now notice we have an immaterial, timeless, spaceless, extremely powerful, rational, extremely intelligent, purposeful, morally perfect, personal creator. This is a theistic God identified without reference to any religious book. Now this is not the invisible man in the sky. This is an unlimited cause of all being, including the sky and everything else that exists. This is the unmoved mover of Aristotle and consistent with the Yahweh of the Jews and the Christians, who not only caused all things, but holds them together right now. In conclusion, none of these things can be explained by atheism, but they can be explained by theism. In fact, all of these aspects of reality have an immaterial source or foundation. Therefore, when atheists use or cite any of them to support atheism, they are stealing from God in order to argue against him. And you know, stealing is a crime. So if David starts bringing up science, or starts bringing up reasons, or starts bringing up, I hope he's bringing up reasons, it's a debate, or starts bringing up evil, these things don't exist if atheism's true. So let's see how he handles it. But these are the reasons, among others, I don't have enough faith to be an atheist.
Wow, Frank, I'm really glad this is not a fast-talking debate. If it was, I would not be able to compete with that. That was just amazing. Did you inhale at all? Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for coming today. I want to thank Chan for organizing this, and Frank for bringing me in, and Pastor, of course, thank you very much for hosting this. I want to reiterate a couple things before I begin. Number one, that Frank and I are not enemies. I do a lot of debates. We are adversaries. He's a nice guy. He's just wrong. Okay? And frankly, you're probably a lot of nice, wrong people too. So, my name is David Silverman. I'm named David Silverman because my parents, they were originally going to name me Jew, but they decided it wasn't Jewish sounding enough, so they called me David Silverman instead. Jan. So I'm here today to talk a little bit slower, much slower, about why atheism is a more reasonable explanation for existence than theism. And, I love theists. I've been married to one for 23 years, and, they have some really interesting answers to some really basic questions. And the number one reason that we get as an atheist activist, the number one reason that I get is the God of the gaps. Now, they have a lot of great words for the God of the gaps. Frank has wonderful words for the God of the gaps. The cosmological argument, the teleological argument. That's my favorite, teleological argument. Great big words that mean one thing. I don't know, therefore God did it. That's what it means. I don't know, therefore God did it. Now, is this positive proof for a God? Is ignorance of fact evidence for fiction? I don't think so. What it is an attempt to rationalize a presupposition. You go in saying, there's a God, and I'm going to prove it. And then you rationalize it with what? Knowledge? With testing? No, with ignorance. It used to be, well, it actually was started by the Neanderthals. Religion was started by the Neanderthals. They looked at this beautiful tree near my house, for instance, and they said, why does the tree change color? I don't know. Must be God. Why does the rain fall from the sky? Why does the thunder clap in the clouds? What is that light that keeps flashing up there? I don't know. Must be God. Must be a God. Must be a God. And then we learned. Then we started to test. Then we started to think. Then we started to rationalize. And what we found out was that the trees actually don't change color because of a man in the sky. And yes, it is a man in the sky that we're talking about. They actually have a physical reason, a chemical reason to change colors. The rain actually is following the laws of physics, as is the thunder and the lightning. So the space for God gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And it has gotten smaller dramatically over the past 50 years. And what we have as a result is a very, very small God that exists today in one place, really. The God of the gaps exists before the beginning of the universe. We've got it all the rest straightened out. We know all the rest. And what we've got is a God that's out there that we can't answer yet. That's the God of the gaps, and that's what we're talking about now. God of the gaps simply means, I don't know. I was on Bill O'Reilly a little while ago. He gave me this great line. He said, tide goes in, the tide goes out. You can't explain it. And that was his proof of God. You can't explain that was his gotcha line. You can't explain that. Therefore, the invisible magic man in the sky is real. That was his logic. That is your logic. You're finding ways to do it. So, you talked about first cause. This is the epitome of the God of the gaps. How did the universe come to be? I don't know. Therefore, God did it. A God did it. Specifically my God, by the way. Although the exact same thing could be used for any God. The exact same thing could be used for the invisible unicorn that I just made up just now. Look, this water bottle. How did the universe come? The water bottle did it. It's the same logic. It's the same reasoning. It simply moves the question out one level. We don't know where the universe began. That's not good enough for the theists. They say, well, God did it. Well, okay, where did God begin? And you just heard him right now say, well, we don't have to worry about that because God is special. God is outside of time. So it basically takes the question, moves it out one level, and ignores the question. There's no answer there. The design argument. I love the design argument. Look at the beautiful sky. Look at the grass. Look at the measurements of the universe. Why does the universe look like this? I don't know. Must be God. A God. Specifically my God. Your God. Or the water bottle. Now, let's put some design perspective on this. The universe has about a trillion stars. Not trillions and trillions of stars. A trillion stars. Many with planets. 99.99999% dead. And if you took all those planets and all the stars and the plasma and everything and put it into one, that total is 5% of the universe. The other 95% of the universe is either dark matter or dark energy, which is 100% dead. The Earth is 15% habitable by humans. It's 75% water, but only 3% of the water is drinkable. So I think everybody here, if you had the power to design a planet, you could do better. The answer is, if this universe was designed, it was designed very poorly and definitely not for us. I love the moral argument too, because the moral argument presupposes itself. Who invented objective morality? Must be God. Except there is no objective morality. It's all relative. Frank showed a picture of the Holocaust victims. He didn't mention that the Holocaust, that the SS troops that put those Jews there had Gott mit uns, God is with us, on their belt buckles. They did it in the name of God. They thought they were being objectively moral. Their idea of objective morality allowed them to do the atrocities. There is no objective morality. It is all opinion, all of it. That doesn't make us lack of free will. It simply makes us responsible for making our own decisions. We, as a society, make the judgments. Now, preference is also something that we get a lot of. Wouldn't you prefer it if it was a God? And believe me, I would. I want to live forever. I want you all to live forever. I want to see my mother again, my father, my grandmother. Preference. Your comfort level. How would it be if it wasn't a God? Completely irrelevant questions. Your choice, your preference is not relevant as to whether or not there is a man in the sky. So let's talk about atheism. Let's talk about real learning. The first cause is very simple. We don't really know. We have some good ideas. We put together some formulas, and some very smart people are putting together some real good research. But there's an important lesson in the first cause. I don't know is a fair and reasonable answer. It is also the truth. I'm here telling you the truth. We don't know what happened before the Big Bang. He doesn't either. He says he does, but he doesn't. Nobody does. Design. You know, we are well aware today of all the laws of physics that control everything from snowflakes to galaxy clusters. We got all that down. We don't need God for any of that. That's where the God of the gaps comes in. We don't need God for anything. But in all of our research, we have never found any evidence ever supporting anything supernatural or intelligent in the design of the universe. Never. And I want to make sure that you understand something here. I have said this before. I am not married to atheism. I'm not. Atheism is a conclusion that you can come to based on what your inputs are, based on your data. And if any God ever existed, if any supernatural had ever been proven at all, even once, I wouldn't be an atheist, because I'd be wrong. Unfortunately for my opponent, the number of times that the supernatural has been found and documented and figured out and proven is 0. Never. Morality. Yes, I've already mentioned there's no objective morality. All morality is fluid. Which is why if you look in the Bible, you'll see genocide and slavery and incest portrayed positively. There is no commandment against rape. There's no commandment against slavery. There are 4 commandments about obeying the laws. Why? If that's objectively moral, do you think that it's objectively moral or objectively immoral to rape? Well, I think it's pretty immoral to rape. There's no commandment against rape. So where are you getting that morality? You're getting it from us. We picked it. And we're choosing morality on a real-time basis on an ever-evolving curve. We are making the choice. We are a social animal. Now, theism is wrong. And Chuck was up here before. He said that the Bible was written by God. Well, God made man in his own image. That's what the Bible says. But evolution proves that wrong, doesn't it? Now, I want to make sure that you all understand that evolution is proven scientific fact. It's not dogma. It's repeatable. It's testable. It's proven in every way possible. We know more about evolution than we know about gravity. We know more about evolution than we know about electricity. It's proven fact. The bad news for you is that it completely disproves the Garden of Eden, which disproves original sin and disproves the need for a Savior, which is why Christianity will not admit that it's wrong. It has a very strong effect not to. Another one, God made earth before light, less than 10,000 years ago. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. Listen closely. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. And the earth was waste and lifeless, and darkness was on the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters, and God said, "Let there be light." Clearly, God made earth before God made light. Ladies and gentlemen, we are made mostly of carbon atoms. We have proven beyond doubt that we are made up of carbon atoms, and we have proven beyond doubt that these carbon atoms are formed only in the belly of stars. We had to go through an entire generation of stars in this universe before the first planet formed. That's proven. That's done. So if God wrote the Bible, God was wrong many times. But interesting fact, of course, theism never admits it. Theism never admits it's wrong, even when its arguments are proven wrong beyond doubt. I have a question. How can something that never admits its errors be trusted as an explanation for reality? There are some children in this audience. Would you trust somebody that would never admit they were wrong, even if you proved it? And they said, no, I'm right. You wouldn't. Another fact, in world history, the number of times an atheistic argument has been proven wrong with a theistic argument is 0. I'll say that again. The number of times an atheistic argument has been proven wrong with a theistic argument is 0. That's a 100% track record. Science is commonly referred to as atheistic. It is only atheistic because in world history, there has been no evidence ever for the existence of a God. Never once, at all, anywhere. If I was wrong on that point even once, I would drop my job and become a believer. But it has never happened because it's a myth. It's a lie. And theism lies a lot. There's a lot of lying going on in theism. Double meanings with words with double meanings. Evolution is just a theory. How many people have heard evolution is just a theory? Just like, creationism or any theory that I think up. They don't talk about the double meanings of the word theory, the difference between a philosophical theory and a scientific theory. They equate them in a deliberate attempt to mislead you. Know requires absolute knowledge. You can't know anything, they say. Oh, and this is my favorite. The Bible is true because the Bible says it's true. The Bible is good because the Bible says it's good. This circular reasoning is a deliberate attempt to mislead you. It is a lie, and you should be looking for it. Christianity is a philosophy, according to my friend Bill O'Reilly. He made that up. He wanted to keep Christian privilege. Oh, and that great little cross right there? That's a cross, right? Well, guess what? According to the state of Utah, that's a secular symbol, not a Christian symbol. It's a lie. And that's what the Bible means, is another thing. They smoosh the Bible's incorrect information in today's knowledge, but always in the past tense. And there was evening and there was morning, the first day becomes 2 billion years. Only after we prove the universe is more than 10,000 years old beyond the shadow of a doubt. The Big Bang is in the Bible after we discovered it, not before. That's metaphorical. I love that one. That's when you also smoosh the Bible's backwards morality into today's morality by simply calling the bad stuff allegorical or making some other excuse. Leviticus 20:13, if a man lay with a man as he lay with a woman, he has committed an abomination. That's why there's so much anti-gay fervor about. But that's only one half of the sentence, isn't it? The second half of the sentence is, and they shall be stoned to death, and their blood is on their own hands. That's God talking to Moses in the same context as the Ten Commandments. But we ignore that part. That's a metaphor. That's an allegory. And what you're seeing right now, all of you are seeing this right now, is that first part of the sentence is also becoming allegorical. All of a sudden, now that morality in the country has changed to accept homosexuals, more and more churches are becoming more and more accepting of homosexuals. The Leviticus 20:13 is becoming a metaphor right before our eyes. Scientist X agrees with me. Those few scientists, there are about 7% of the scientists in this country actually believe in a God, whichever one they believe in. But those who do believe in a God for non-scientific reasons, mainly because there are no scientific reasons to believe in a God. Or the speakers are just deliberately quote mining. That's when you take one quote out of a Richard Dawkins book and you make it seem like he agrees with you. Atheism is not the art of lying, it's the art of learning. I don't know means I have more to learn. Simple stuff. Not brain surgery. Not hard. Proving a scientific hypothesis wrong or right is considered good, because it means we're learning, and learning is the point. Real science has taught us everything we know. Theism has taught us nothing, but does take the credit anyways, as I mentioned before, with the long creation days and the Big Bang. In fact, the most important thing that science has taught us is how wrong theism is. Now, in conclusion, theism lives in ignorance, the God of the gaps. What we don't know, that's where God is. Used to be big, now it's real small. Using what we don't know is proof of a God. I don't know, that's proof of an immortal, invisible man in the sky. That's not proof. Theistic religions take credit for teaching us what science has already taught, like the Big Bang, like long creation days, or what society has already decided, that homosexuality is just fine, and you shouldn't stone gay people for being gay. It never admits being wrong, even when proven, like light coming after the earth. rather insists on its own perfection, even as it changes, as we are seeing today. Science, on the other hand, admits the truth. We don't know everything, so we learn. Science cannot lie because data cannot lie. And unlike what Frank said, hypotheses are not trusted. They're peer-reviewed and tested as a vetting process. Now compare that to religion. You get two preachers together that disagree, what are they going to do? They're not going to prove each other wrong. They're going to go off to their own church and preach what they think as objective reality. That's why there are more denominations of Christianity than there are sentences in the Bible. I'll say that again. There are more denominations of Christianity than there are sentences in the Bible. Scientific hypotheses are proven wrong often, but that is not support for our man in the sky. No atheistic argument has ever been proven wrong with a theistic argument. Again, never happened. The reverse, child's play. Anybody can do it. Proving a theistic argument wrong with science, I did it today twice, my first couple sentences. You don't even have to leave Genesis 1 to do it. So, while science does not guarantee the immediate satisfaction, we're going to die, all of us. We're all going to die without knowing how the universe began. We all want to know everything. That's too bad. It's not going to happen. We're not going to get the instant gratification with science that you get with religion. God did it. Oh, now I understand. But the conclusions are based on real data by real scientists and tested by peers. Science wins because science learns. And as a result of science learning, society learns. We learn. We evolve. While religion stays stagnant and closes its eyes and blocks its ears and calls itself perfect. And that's why atheistic methods beat theistic methods for explaining the universe. Thank you.
And now we'll hear a 10-minute rebuttal.
Howdy. I'm sorry I was so slow last time. I'll try and speed it up. In all fairness to David, his opening statement was not intended to rebut mine. So just so you know that, he'll have a chance to rebut mine here in a minute. Let me just get this working first. Stand by for vectors, Victor. Call for clearance, Clarence. Roger. Do we have any airplane fans in here, please? Where have you guys been?
I was right with you, man.
All right. Ah, that's not it. Hold on, Chan. I'm getting there. It's hard to do PowerPoint and rebuttal, I understand. Talk awkwardly amongst yourselves. What do we say now? Aha. Well, first of all, David has given us a lot of platitudes, but no real evidence. He's got a lot of complaints about God, but no real evidence for how reality can be explained without reference to immateriality that theism requires. He's talking about science all the time, but science depends on immaterial realities. Now, his first point was the God of the gaps. This is not God of the gaps reasoning. In fact, all of these... I'm supposed to be showing something right now. Hold on. What's that? Somebody call 911. What's that? Insert prayer joke. Good. Where's Alan? Did this thing shut off by itself or something, or? Because when you have visuals, how do you turn this thing on? What's that?
That's a good question.
And God said, see, God doesn't exist.
I'm right, man.
We tried, man.
I'm right.
We tried.
How do you
Is
turn
Alan
it
here?
on?
You want to use mine?
Well,
Use mine. Just plug mine in.
no, it's, well, maybe.
There's no buttons back here.
Yeah, how do you turn it on? Second law of thermodynamics. I don't want to mess you up here, man.
No, I'm done. You can have it. Here.
Hold on. Thanks. Thank you for your gracious offer. You're a scholar and a gentleman.
There we go.
All right, stand by. That's right. Thank you, Alan. Sorry for the folks listening at home or watching at home. Anyway, this is not God of the gaps reasoning. None of these. We're having fun, aren't we? Stand by. None of these are a lack of understanding. We're not arguing from what we don't know. We're arguing from what we do know. In fact, let me ask you this. How many have ever been here to the Grand Canyon? You ever been to the Grand Canyon? You can see it's a beautiful geologic formation, right? But can everybody see the difference between the Grand Canyon, this geologic formation, and this geologic formation? Mount Rushmore. Certainly, wind, rain, and erosion didn't create the faces on Mount Rushmore, right? Certainly not natural erosion, maybe political erosion. But the point here is that if you've got to figure out what caused the faces on Mount Rushmore, you are not going to say it was a natural cause. You're going to say that it required an intelligent cause. And you're not arguing from what you don't know, you're arguing from what you do know. Otherwise, we'd have to say that we're being unscientific when we look at Mount Rushmore and say it's got to be an intelligent cause. No, it's not a natural cause, it's an intelligent cause. Similarly, when you look at Take Out the Garbage Mom, you don't just lack a natural explanation for Take Out the Garbage Mom. It's that Take Out the Garbage Mom is positive, empirically verifiable evidence for an intelligent being. So it's not God of the gaps reasoning. Let me ask you a question. Here's Richard Dawkins' book, The God Delusion. Question, who wrote this book? Is it more reasonable that an author wrote it or the laws of ink and paper? Are we positing a God of the gaps if we say an author wrote a book? No, we are saying that a book is positive evidence for intelligence. We're not arguing from what we don't know, we're arguing from what we do know. In fact, he went on to talk about, David did, he went on to talk about the fact that there is no evidence for, well, no, he didn't say there was no evidence for, but he said that the creation of the universe was a God of the gaps situation. Actually, it's not at all. This is Robert Jastrow, an agnostic astronomer who wrote a book in 1978 called God and the Astronomers. And on page 1, he says, I'm an agnostic on religious matters. Here's what he said, however, on page 14. The astronomical evidence leads to a biblical view of the origin of the world. The essential element in the astronomical and biblical accounts of Genesis is the same. He then went on to say this in an interview. And by the way, this is the guy that sat in the same chair Edwin Hubble sat in at the Mount Wilson Observatory in Pasadena, California. So he is a scientist of impeccable credentials. Here's what he went on to say. He said, astronomers now found they painted themselves into a corner because they have proven by their own methods that the world began abruptly in an act of creation to which can trace the seeds of every star, every planet, every living thing in this cosmos and on the earth. And they have found that all this has happened as a product of forces they cannot hope to discover. Then he went on to say that there are what I or anyone would call supernatural forces at work is now, I think, a scientifically proven fact. Now, why would he say supernatural? Why couldn't nature have created the universe? Because there was no nature. Nature is the effect. It can't be the cause. Nature was the creation. Nature can't be the cause. It was created itself. In fact, I was at the University of Michigan, and an atheist said, this is the God of the gaps argument. He said, give us more time, give science more time, and we'll figure out a natural cause for the universe. I said, John, we will never find a natural cause for the entire universe if the entire universe is all of nature. That's what it appears to be. I said, because it's the effect, not the cause. The cause must transcend the effect. If space-time and matter had a beginning, then the cause must be beyond space-time and matter. In other words, must be spaceless, timeless, and immaterial. I said, to say if we could just give science more time, by the way, that sounds a lot like faith, but anyway, give science a lot more time, we'll figure out a natural cause for all of nature. I said, that would be like me saying, if you just give me more time, I'll figure out I gave birth to my own mother. No, you're not going to do that. Because I'm the effect, I can't be the cause. So he's saying there has to be supernatural forces at work. Why? Because all of nature was created, so it must be something beyond nature, something we would call supernatural nature. In fact, Arthur Eddington, who was a contemporary of Einstein, put it this way: the beginning seems to present insuperable difficulties unless we agree to look on it as frankly supernatural. By the way, he went on to talk about poor design. You can't know whether something is designed poorly or well unless you know the intentions of the designer. In fact, in this universe constrained by physical constraints, there is no such thing as perfect design. This laptop is good for doing presentations, but it's very poor for running NASA. If I try and make it bigger, I can't take it around the country and use it, but it'll be more powerful. If I make it smaller, I can't run NASA, but I can do these PowerPoint presentations. So the intent of the designer is what makes is how you have to evaluate whether the design is good or not. And by the way, bad design is not no design. My car is not designed perfectly, but it's still designed. And we agree, of course, we live in a fallen world, so everything's broken. Nothing's going to work perfectly. That's the whole point of the fall. Now, he said there's never been an atheist argument that's ever been refuted. Well, let me give you an atheist argument that has been refuted. This is Francis Crick, who helped discover the DNA molecule. Well, he was an atheist. He was a materialist, and so he wrote a book called The Astonishing Hypothesis. And here's what he said in the book. The astonishing hypothesis is that you, your joys, your sorrows, your memories, your ambitions, your sense of personal identity, and free will are, in fact, no more than the behavior of a vast assembly of nerve cells and their associated molecules. You know, we're just a meat machine. We don't really reason, we just react. We don't have free will, we think we do, but we don't. Every decision, every thought we have is based on a previous natural cause over which we have no control. Now, that's what this is saying. This is the atheistic view. Now, imagine if Crick had written this in his book. Imagine if he had said that the astonishing hypothesis is that my scientific conclusions that I write in this book are, in fact, no more than the behavior of a vast assembly of nerve cells and their associated molecules. Would anybody believe anything he said? No, you see, atheism defeats itself. It's self-defeating to say we're all molecules in motion because we don't really reason, we just react. So why should we believe any of our thoughts, including the thoughts that atheism is true? You see, atheism is the universal acid. It cuts through everything. David got up here and tried to give scientific arguments. I don't know what they were. They weren't really scientific. He just talked broadly in platitudes about science. But again, science doesn't work if atheism's true. Because we're, again, all just molecules in motion, and there is no such immaterial reality. If you recall, all of these things that shore up science, that are at the foundation of science, don't exist in an atheistic universe. He also then went on to talk about morality being relative. Do you think torturing babies for fun is relative? Do you think that's just a matter of opinion? Do you think eating babies is just a matter of opinion? No, this is objectively morally wrong, and we all know it. And it's not just that we know it. He said societies decide. Which society, Mother Teresa's or Hitler? It's not just that we know it. It's not an argument that I know morality from society, and therefore that tells me what the right thing is. The question isn't how we know something. The question is, why does it exist? Why does a moral law exist? There must be a moral lawgiver external to ourselves that doesn't change, that has the authority to show us what rightness and wrongness is. And that's what we mean by God. So the issue isn't how you know it. The issue is, why does it exist? Why is there a moral law out there? Evolution has nothing to do with theism, so I don't know why we're talking about evolution. He said, theism never admits it's wrong. Who represents theism? I don't know, is there one guy that represents theism? I don't know. I'm sure there's many theists who have changed their minds. I've changed my mind on certain things. he keeps talking about the Bible. This is really not about the Bible, although the Bible's related to this. If we want to have a debate about the Bible, we can. But this is more about, is there a being beyond the world who created the world and sustains the world? You don't need the Bible to know that. And by the way, you don't need the Bible to know morality either. It's written on your hearts. You know right from wrong on the big issues. In fact, for you Christians in here, if you say that you need to know the Bible or you need to have the Bible to know morality, that would mean that God was completely unjust for judging the entire generation of Noah. They didn't have a Bible. The moral law is written on their hearts. This is why Jefferson started the country this way. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men were created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, among them life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That moral law is consistent with the Ten Commandments, but you don't need to know the Ten Commandments from the Bible to know the basic precepts of right and wrong. It's written on your heart because there's somebody that's written it there who has the authority to do so, who is the very standard of rightness. So you really to be an atheist, you have to give up common sense. You have to say that all these immaterial realities that we all know exist either don't exist or can be explained materially. Maybe during the Q&A we can talk about how these things can be explained materially. Thank you.
Now, David will give his 10-minute rebuttal.
Well, I got to tell you something. This universe was designed for me. I'm a product of my parents, of course. My parents made love on a certain night during their brownout in New England. My older sisters went out that night because my older sister got a call from her friend. So my parents were alone in the house in the dark, and they had nothing else to do. If any of that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be here today. If my sister's friend hadn't called her, if my younger sister hadn't gone with her, if my parents decided to build a fire instead, or to have sex in a different position, or if my grandparents didn't do everything exactly as they did, if anything in the past had changed, I wouldn't be here. So I guess the universe was designed for me because the chances of all that happening are pretty slim. Must be an immortal magic man in the sky. See, the thing is that the universe looks ordered because we're here. The universe looks designed because we're here. And making up excuses for the fact that when you look out there, you see nothing but dissenting chaos, dispersing chaos in little pools of gravity, little wells of matter and energy, doesn't make it go away. Doesn't make it make sense. The uncaused cause must be spaceless and timeless and immaterial. Isn't that interesting? That's exactly what I was saying. It presupposes his God. He insists that the first cause argument is not an argument from ignorance, is not a God of the gaps. I would ask you, and maybe we will discuss this during question and answers, what exactly is a God of the gaps theory? What exactly does that mean, and how is it different? I would like to know that. He talks a lot about Cheerios. He mentions Cheerios twice. Now, this gives a very, very wrong opinion about the evolutionary process. This gives a very, very wrong opinion about design. Evolution is not about something exploding and falling into place. Evolution happens over billions of years, countless thousands of generations, little increments at a time. You're not going to spill the Cheerios to take out the trash. You're going to spill the Cheerios, and the tea is going to be there. And it's going to stick because it's better there, because something makes it stick there. And you're going to shake the table, and the R will circle around over a period of time, and it'll stick in place. That's the way evolution works. It's not about an explosion. And then he talks about relativism. He really, really doesn't like relativism. Too bad. It's relative anyways. And it's not a defeat to say that we're all molecules. It's not a defeat to say that we're all energy. It's not a defeat to say the truth, that we're not divinely inspired. that we're not holy, that we're not made with some grand design. That's not a defeat. That's a truth. And when we talk about relativism, we also talk about relative morality. He says there is objective morality. And he says, is it fun to torture babies? Of course not. We all know that. We're all good people. We all know that. Of course, that's not in the Bible. In the Bible, Psalms 137 says, how blessed is he who dashes the babies against the rocks. So I guess the Bible's immoral and goes against normal morality. Unless, of course, you're wrong. And you notice how he totally avoided the whole concept of light coming before earth and being proven wrong. He just kind of blew that off. But the idea that morality is fluid actually makes everything work because it puts everything on us. It makes us the responsible parties. It tells us why we're making the decisions, and it puts the responsibility on us for making those decisions. We think that the Holocaust was wrong, and that's correct. He's very correct. The people who did the Holocaust, the Germans, the Nazis, they thought they were doing good. And yes, it is just a difference of opinion. It is. That's not rosy, it's not happy, and it certainly isn't easy. But it is true. And it is also true, again, that they did that under the word of God, because God was with them. The idea of objective morality is extremely dangerous. Because, like I said before, if you get two theologians in a room and they differ, they go off and they talk, they don't solve their problems, they create another sect. And they go off and they create their own objective morality. But it is the appearance of objective morality, it is the concept of objective morality that causes people to not take responsibility for their actions. Those planes flew into the buildings in 9/11 because the people flying it thought they were being objectively moral. They didn't say, wait a minute, am I doing the right thing here? No, they did it for their God. They did it because they were being moral in their crazy, mixed-up opinions. Of course, the fact that they're crazy and mixed-up opinions is my opinion. That's the hard part about reality. The thing about religion is it makes things easier. It makes things more pleasant. I'm here for a purpose. I'm here for a reason. My morals are on somebody else. And by the way, everybody lives forever. There's no such thing as death. That's a great fantasy. But it's not reality. The reality is we're all going to die. The reality is that morality is relative. It changes across time. That's why dashing babies against rocks is praised in the Bible. That's why genocide is praised in the Bible. God commits genocide. Yay, God. That's why incest is in there. That's why rape is not a commandment. Again, there's no commandment against rape because morality is fluid. We are responsible. We all knew that. You all knew that. But the idea of objective morality defeats that. It takes that responsibility off you, puts it onto the preacher, who tells you what the objective morality is, whatever one of the 30,000 sects of Christianity you want, and it takes the responsibility off you. And that's what allows you to do some pretty immoral things. Pretty immoral things. Like leaving a baby in an orphanage instead of being adopted by a gay couple. Leaving a baby in an orphanage instead of being adopted by a gay couple. That's a pretty immoral thing. That baby's gonna have a long life in the system instead of having a loving parents. And would you want that for your own kids? If you were killed and all of your family was killed except for your baby, would you want your baby in the system? Or would you want your baby in a wealthy, happy, loving, gay couple family? Well, you'd probably want them in that home. You wouldn't want them in the system. But religion makes you do immoral things because religion preaches objective morality. It takes the decision away from you. It gives you less power. I think I'll stop there.
Is everybody having fun yet? Now it really gets fun. Here's what we're going to do. Do you want to sit?
Oh, you want to sit?
No, it's up to you, man. You want to sit? You want to stay where you are?
Let's do it here.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to sit right here. Here's what we're going to do. They're going to question each other. Frank will start. Frank has, he's got 5 minutes, and he questions, David answers. After 5 minutes, if we think that, I'll say, okay, that's 5 minutes. David, do you want to continue the conversation, or you want to change the subject? Then David will have the opportunity. If he feels like it's going good, he'll keep doing that. We'll do that back and forth 3 times, try to get a total of 30 minutes in on Crossfire. Okay? So Frank, you start first.
David, you were just talking about leaving a kid in an orphanage rather than putting it with a gay couple is immoral. I thought you just told us that there is no such thing as objective morality. Is it immoral, or you just don't like it?
No, I said it was no such thing as objective morality. I said all morality is relative.
So why are you objecting to somebody who doesn't want to put a kid with a homosexual couple then? Why are you objecting to that if there's no...
We have the right to object. We are always doing that, okay? We're always making these choices. It's not wrong to say that I'm making my independent choices, independent of any other book or any other holy book. We all make the same moral choices. I find it wholly immoral.
Oh, according to what standard? Your own standard?
According to my standards, yes.
Oh, well, that's okay.
Well, that's exactly the same way you do it.
Okay, well, but are you condemning somebody else for having a different relative standard than you?
No, I'm saying we all have to take responsibility for our moral judgments. We are all making those decisions in real time, just like you are.
Okay,
For the
yes.
same reason that you're not going into Leviticus and saying, and let's kill the gays, that's immoral to you and me. We're making that relative moral decision. You're supporting your relative moral decision with the Bible, with other Bible quotes that you're finding.
Yeah, but you're confusing the decision with the existence of a moral standard. You're saying that there is no moral standard, or there is a standard objective outside of humanity to which we should obey?
There is no objective moral standard. We are responsible for our own actions.
Responsible to who?
To ourselves and to our society.
Which society? Mother Teresa's or Hitler's?
The society in which we live.
Okay, so
Yes, this is not an easy question.
So at Nuremberg, then, we really had no right to convict the Nazis of obeying their government.
We, as a world society, judge our criminals, and we judge them as we see fit.
I know we judge them, so you're saying we just judge them based on our preferences. You know, in some cultures, they take care of their babies. In other cultures, they eat their babies. Which do you prefer?
I prefer the ones where they take care of the babies. I also prefer the ones where the Nazis don't do terrible things under the name of God.
But it's just a preference.
Yes.
Okay, so
It's an opinion.
Okay, well, if it's just an opinion, you're saying then, if it's just an opinion, I don't know why you condemn a Christian couple for not wanting to put a baby with a homosexual, because that's just their morality that they have every right to express themselves, don't they?
They have every right to do it. I'm saying it's a wholly immoral position.
According to who?
According to me.
Well, okay, well, that's just David
Of course,
Silverman.
it's all according to us. We all make our own moral decisions.
Yeah, I understand.
The only difference between you and me is that I take responsibility for my moral decisions, and you justify your moral decisions by finding a passage in the Bible that matches your moral decisions and saying, aha, it's objective morality.
Well, if there is no objective morality, then we have, it's even hard to talk this way because we say we have no right, but that implies a moral standard too.
No,
See,
we have a societal right. Society
according
gives us the
to
rights.
you, or according to
the
Hitler,
society,
or
and according to the government that we create. Yes.
Okay, well, then we had no real way to condemn the Nazis for what they did.
That's the hard answer is you're correct. The hard answer is it is a matter of opinion. The hard answer is they thought they were doing objective good. They did.
Oh,
so we condemn them as a society, but you know, we do this all the time.
Yeah, they may have thought they were doing good, but they really weren't according to a standard. But the only way you could know whether
according
they were
to whose
really
standard?
The unchanging, objective, moral standard that is God's nature. And
they did it under the name of God.
Well, there's a lot of people that you don't judge a philosophy or a religion by its abuse, David. Jesus never said that we ought to go kill the Jews, quite obviously. He was a Jew himself. You should know that.
Yeah.
Okay? So, because people have abused religion doesn't mean that the religion is false.
The fact that people have abused religion shows you that morality is relative. If it was objective, you couldn't abuse it.
No, you're confusing sociology and morality. Sociology is how people behave. Morality is how they ought to behave. We all ought to behave a certain way, but we fail to. By the way, that's why we need a Savior. Okay.
You're clapping for that? Really? You're clapping for that? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, now we're going to switch. David, you can keep going, or you can ask Frank.
Oh, no, let's go on to evil. Because, you brought up the word evil, and you said, I'm supposed to bring up the word evil. And then you totally eliminated and went around the problem of evil. So I want to talk a little bit about the problem of evil. You said that that evil proves God because objective evil proves objective good.
Yeah.
I'm telling you there's no objective evil either.
Well, then what are you complaining about?
What I'm complaining about is I want to know about the real problem of evil that Christianity faces. If God is all-powerful and omniscient and omnibenevolent, why does he need babies to be born with cancer?
Okay. Now, actually, what you're talking about here is a theological question that can be answered if the Scriptures are true by going to the Scriptures, but we're not...
Listen for the dancing. Listen for the dancing.
No, hold on.
We've got an all-powerful God. Mm-hmm. He can do whatever he wants, and he doesn't need babies to have cancer. We've got an all-knowing God, so he knows every baby that's going to get cancer. Now, the only thing left is benevolence. Define benevolence and tell me why a God who can do anything under any circumstances needs babies with cancer.
Excellent question.
I know.
We live in a fallen world, don't we?
That's a good excuse.
Well,
but you can't blame
but
Adam.
What if it's true?
Oh, what if anything is true? The question
That's what
is,
we're here to debate,
why does God need babies to be born with cancer?
Hold on.
Please.
Let me.
Yes,
God doesn't need it. God might allow it.
Because he's omnibenevolent?
Okay, yeah, hold on. Let's get there.
Let's get to the benevolence.
I can't say anything better than this 1 minute and 46-second video, which I'm going to show you, and hopefully it'll
I don't
work.
want a video. I want you to tell me.
Oh, I will tell you, because I'm telling you through this video. Okay, so stand by. I think we need HDMI 3 on. It is? Hey, stand by. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, dun, dun. All right.
This better be good, man.
It's
better
good.
be good. If it's not good, I'm totally going to kick your butt.
Hey, there's no such thing as good. It's all relative.
It is all relative.
All right. You got to listen. You got to watch closely, David. I'm sorry you got a bad angle here, but you really got to watch closely. You right, guys ready to go? We got sound? Here we go.
Is God good? If he is, why is there suffering and evil? Let's assume for the moment that God is all-powerful. This means that God can do anything that is logically possible. So he can create galaxies and subatomic particles and rainforests and you. But God cannot do what is logically impossible. He cannot make a square circle or a one-ended stick. So can God make a rock so big that he can't lift it? No. So what if, when God created human beings, he wanted them to be free? Freedom's a good thing, but if humans are to be free, they cannot be forced to obey God. Because freedom without choice is like a square circle. It's a logical contradiction. No choice, no freedom. God didn't want robots. He wanted real people. The first humans endowed with the awesome power of free choice abused their freedom. The tragic consequences of their bad choice and our bad choices ripple across the world. God is responsible for the fact of freedom. but humans are responsible for their acts of freedom. But let's remember, we don't suffer alone. God will put an end to suffering and evil. And God became a man to suffer with us. God is good, and He wants real people like you to know Him, but the free choice is yours.
So the ultimate answer to the question is we have free will. And why do we have free will? Because that's the only way we can have love.
Free will.
Yes,
free will. You're actually
by the
saying
way,
God wants babies to be born with cancer so that we can have free will. We couldn't have free will if babies didn't have cancer.
No. What I'm saying is
That's what you're
the
saying.
entrance of evil into the universe was a result of free choice. And the reason we had free choice was because that's the only way we could have love, but this also creates the possibility for evil.
The entrance of evil into the universe was a result of free choice.
Yes.
Let's talk about that for a second,
Yes.
okay? Adam and Eve are in the Garden of Eden, and God is there with them.
Okay.
I'm sorry, you brought it up.
Yeah, no,
I'm allowed to do this.
I understand
You
that.
want to keep going on this?
Yeah, I want to finish the thought here on evil, if you don't mind.
Yeah, let's keep doing this because this is good stuff.
Okay, all right, good.
Because when it comes down to it, Adam and Eve are in the Garden of Eden with God, and God is omniscient, and God knows the future, and God puts the tree of knowledge of good and evil in spot X.
Yes.
And when He does that, He's omniscient, and He knows that Adam is going to eat that fruit.
Yeah.
He knows it's going to cause the fall of man, and billions of souls will go to hell, and according to you, babies will start being born with cancer.
Okay.
If He puts the tree of knowledge over here, it doesn't happen. Or if He doesn't put it there at all, it doesn't happen. But God puts it where He knows with 100% certainty that Adam is going to eat of that fruit. Who made that choice?
God knows the end from the beginning,
Yeah.
and He created the universe, and He created He knew what would happen.
Anytime you want to answer the question.
I'm getting there. But that doesn't mean people don't have free choice. And you're saying that God then could not have done that if somebody sins. Well, let me ask you a question.
That's not what I said at all. What I asked you was,
Yeah,
who made the choice in the Garden of Eden? You
Adam.
said
Adam and Eve did.
Adam and Eve made the choice. Now, let me ask a question. Let me put it this way. God knows with 100% certainty that if I put the tree of knowledge here, billions of souls go to hell, and babies get cancer, according to you, which doesn't follow either, but I'll let you pass on.
But wait.
But if
Stop.
I put it over here...
No, hold on.
No, this is the
There's
point.
nothing wrong with babies getting cancer, because it's all relative.
You know what? I judge that. To be wrong.
Well, that's just your personal
But you're
problem,
also
then.
avoiding the question in a great big way.
No. If you allow me to continue with my presentation, I'll go into it.
Another video? I want you to answer me.
It's not another video.
Okay, answer me. When God put the tree of knowledge of good and evil here instead of here, knowing that when He put it here, knowing with 100% certainty...
I got it. Let me answer it. Okay.
Go for it.
Here's the problem. The problem here, David, is that you're assuming that God could have created another universe where nobody sinned. That, while it's logically possible, it might not be actually achievable with free creatures.
So sin was not an option.
No, sin, if God creates a universe with free creatures, He might not be able to create a universe where everybody freely chooses not to sin. So He creates the universe we're in now, people freely choose to sin, and then His job, the whole purpose of the Bible, and we're not really even here to talk about the Bible, but since you brought it up, the whole theme of the Bible, from Genesis to maps, is one word. And that is redemption. You have paradise lost in Genesis, paradise regained in Revelation.
You are totally avoiding my question.
I'm getting there.
Before Adam ate that apple, he was without sin.
Yes.
Before he ate that apple, he was without sin. God put the tree here.
Yes.
He knew it would cause the fall of man.
Yes.
God pushed Adam and Eve out of the Garden of Eden. God made the decision.
Yes.
God made the choice.
And then God made the choice to go in and rescue them.
So
that's what the redemption's all about.
God chose.
David,
I think they'll clap for anything in this audience. God is the villain here. God is the one.
Wait! Stop!
Yes.
There's no villains because there's no good or evil. You've already said so.
Changing the subject. God is the one who made the choice.
I'm not changing the subject.
You said evil entered into the universe because of a choice. I'm submitting to you that it was not Adam who made that choice.
Who was it?
It was God who made that choice.
God made a choice.
So God's a villain. God's the one who sent you to hell. God's the one who sends everybody to hell. God's the one who caused the fall of man, and He did so with intent, with deliberate. God is an ass.
Nobody sends anybody to hell. You send yourself there.
God sent everybody to hell. That's
David,
good, but you're not listening to the argument if you're applauding.
David, people who are in hell are there justly. Okay?
Oh, well, who's justice?
Well, there is no justice according to your worldview.
Okay, hang on one second.
Yeah.
Let's stop with the applause. Okay, let's just stop with the applause so that we can get more time in here. Okay, and we're getting a little off track. The topic
We can change.
Was which better explains reality, atheism or theism?
Yeah,
Now
that's
we're
why
getting
we're
into
talking about the Bible theology
which is
now.
fine
Yeah.
if y'all want to go there, but that wasn't the topic. That
But
we
you
started
still
on.
haven't made the
Okay,
answer to my question.
It's still you.
I still want to talk about this.
All right, let me continue. Well, no, it's not my
No,
turn.
that's right. No, wait. Who just you?
He was asking
Oh, yeah,
me.
it's his choice.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
so
his
you
choice.
still got 40 seconds. Go.
I still got 40 seconds. What I want to know is, if God made the choice to put the tree of knowledge here instead of here, isn't it true then that the sinless Adam was merely a pawn?
No.
And that God made the choice to cause the fall of man?
Because there's a faulty assumption in your scenario here. You're
Yes.
assuming that if he puts it over here, it doesn't happen.
He knows. If he knows he's 100%
Yes,
foreknowledge.
yes.
So he knows if he puts it here, it happens.
Let me finish.
If he puts it here.
David, let me finish.
Yep.
It might be that there's...
All right, now it's your turn. You can keep going, or do you want to change the subject?
Giants are better than the Patriots.
Oh, come on.
They are.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
That's too far, man. That's too far.
Where were we? Oh, it might be that there's no other scenario whereby sin ultimately wouldn't enter the world. Again, let me say this again. What is logically possible might not be actually achievable with free creatures, okay? That's the problem here. You're assuming that God could have created a universe where nobody ever sins. Well, if there are free creatures, there might not be any universe whereby nobody ever sins.
This is not my point at all. My point is that free will is eliminated. There is no such thing as free will if God is omniscient.
Oh, no.
That is my point.
No,
God knew the future when he put the tree there.
Look, I knew you'd be here. Does that mean I caused you
God
to be here?
knew if I drop this, does it have a choice to fall?
Yeah, but you see, that's not an agent. We're agents. We
But
make decisions.
If I have 100% foreknowledge, and if I know with 100% certainty that if I put the tree of knowledge here, it happens, and if I put the tree of knowledge here, it doesn't happen. If I have 100% foreknowledge, like your God supposedly does, I would be the villain by putting it here instead of there, because Adam would have no choice, because I have 100% foreknowledge. Wait, I have 100% foreknowledge.
It's my time. It's my time.
Hey,
it's my time.
I let you play a video. I let you play a video.
Yeah, it was cool. It was good. Well, not by your
No, it wasn't
Get
good.
to your point. Get to your point.
My point is that you're avoiding the subject
No,
of God.
if you would let me
being the bad
answer.
guy.
All right, now let him
Go
answer.
for it.
Again, it
Yeah.
might not be actually achievable. You're assuming that if he puts it over here, they're not going to sin. Well, maybe if he puts it over there, they are too. Let me also point this
You
out.
didn't have to put it anywhere.
Well, then there would be no creation. But you see,
There would be a creation. It would be all perfect. No sin.
Comparing a moral world to a non-world, there's no way to compare them. Okay? Now, just because you know something doesn't mean that you're choosing or that the person doesn't have free will. I mean, you have a 16-year-old daughter. You knew when you had her that she would sin one day, but you're not responsible for that sin. Yet
I
you
don't
choose
have
to have
100% foreknowledge. I can't cause her
You
to
knew
sin.
she would sin because she's a human being, yet you chose to have her.
But Adam was without sin. He was perfect
Yes,
at the
and
time.
he chose, but God can redeem.
He didn't choose. He had no choice because God put the tree of knowledge of good and evil
Let me
where
ask
he
you-
knew Adam would eat the fruit with 100%
Let's assume
certainty.
you love NFL football, which I know you do. Okay? And one day, your Sunday, you're away from the TV, so you've got TiVo, and you record a whole bunch of games while you're away. Then on your way home, you hear the scores on the radio, and you go, oh, I didn't want to hear the scores, right? But then you come home, and you elect to watch the Giants and the Patriots, and we know how that's going to turn out. It always turns out the right way every time, right? Now, as you're watching the game, you know what the score's going to be, but does that mean you're causing the players on the field to do what they do, or do they still have free will?
They don't have free will.
They don't have free will.
No,
The
they don't
players
have
playing
free will.
football don't have free will.
On the recording,
What?
No, on the recording, they don't have free will. They're
The-
fictional. They're just a recording.
No, well,
I
yeah.
know the answer. I know the score.
No, yeah, you know the answer, you know the score, but while they were playing, they had free will. Here's the point. The point is God's outside of time, so he knows the end from the beginning. Just because he knows what we're going to do doesn't mean he's causing us directly to do it. We still have free will. Just
But
like
in the
when
Garden
you
of
watch a
Eden, he
football
did
game
cause
after
it.
it's happened, they still have free will even though you know the score.
But in the Garden of Eden, God did cause it to happen because there has not been any sin. There was no ambiguity to what Adam would do if he put the tree of knowledge there. God knew the beginning to the end. God kicked Adam and Eve out of the Garden of Eden, according to your own Bible. And God caused original sin. Then God held it over all of our heads, according to your Bible. And then God sent billions of souls to
I
torture
hate to tell you
in
that.
eternity
I hate to
in
tell
hell.
you this, but you said an atheist argument's never been refuted. Everything you just said is false. Okay? That's not Christian
I said a
theology.
non-theistic scientific argument has never been refuted. Please don't twist my words. I
Okay.
said a non-theistic argument has never been proven wrong by a theistic argument. You have misquoted me 3 times now on that quote. I said a
But wait,
non-theistic
David.
argument has never
David.
been proven wrong by a theistic
Are
argument.
you calling me immoral?
I'm sorry?
Are you calling me immoral?
Am I calling you immoral?
Yeah.
I'm calling you a liar.
Is that wrong?
Yes.
Really wrong?
Yes.
Oh, so there is objective morality then.
No.
Good, we made some progress. Okay. Let me just deal with this, because basically you're saying there's gratuitous evil in there. There's no purpose for some evil. I can't figure out why a baby has cancer. I can't figure out why bad things happen. So therefore, this must be gratuitous and God's a villain. Let me point out a few things. First of all, how could you know that? Only someone with an eternal perspective could know whether good couldn't come out of evil. We see good coming out from evil all the time. Secondly, with trillions of
Wait a minute.
interacting
Can I
choices...
refute these on a point-by-point basis?
No, let me get through it, and then you can do whatever you want. It's still my time. Okay? Is that
Yeah.
cool? Good. With trillions of interacting choices made every day, every evil may result in good either now, later, or in eternity. In fact, how many have seen the movie It's a Wonderful Life, right? The story of The Wonderful Life is Jimmy Stewart doesn't really understand how his life has impacted so many other lives. He's given the opportunity to come back and see what his life would have been, or what the town would have been like if he'd never existed, and he realized he had such a dramatic effect on everybody. The same thing is true with us. We don't know how events right now can create a ripple effect throughout eternity, so great good could come down later in time, 1,000 years from now, or it could create something good in eternity. Now, I don't know why the purpose for some evil, but I know why I don't know why. I'm finite and God is infinite. To say I can't see any good reason for evil doesn't mean there isn't a good reason for evil. Also, this earthly life is not the end of the story. If God exists, his justice spills into eternity. If God doesn't exist, evil and injustice don't exist, so there's no problem.
Okay, so point 1 and 3 are the same point. Point 1 and 3 merely say, we humans are too stupid to ask this question.
No, it's not that we're stupid, it's that we have
We're
limited
too
capacity.
small.
We can't see the
Too
end from the
stupid.
beginning.
With trillions of interacting choices made every day, every evil may result in good either now, later, or in eternity. But if you have an all-powerful God, he can do whatever he wants without babies being born with cancer. So whatever this later good is, God can make it happen. Whatever that fine plan is, God can make it happen without childhood leukemia. Point number 4, this earthly life is not the end of the story. That's a lie. That's an empty promise that you tell people so that they stop questioning.
No, people can keep
All
questioning.
of this does is it avoids the subject of why an all-powerful God needs evil to exist if he's benevolent.
Because free will exists. If free will exists,
The free
evil is
will
possible.
argument doesn't work. The free will argument doesn't
It
work.
works just fine.
What?
It works just fine.
The free
We
will.
have free will. We can do good or evil. If we can't do evil, then this isn't a moral universe then, is it?
It's not a moral universe.
I mean,
It's a neutral universe.
What I mean by a moral universe is you can choose the good or the evil. That's what I mean. You can choose it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not seeing where you're going.
Well, where I'm going here is that in order to have a moral universe, you have to have free choice.
So we wouldn't have free choices if babies weren't born with cancer.
No, we could still have free choices. But
Okay,
the fact
so
that,
why do babies
but the
be
fact
born with
that
cancer?
babies are born with cancer is something that we might not know the reason for right now. But what I'm saying is,
in fact, it might seem
through-
completely inconsistent with the concept of a benevolent God.
No,
because
no,
whatever that reason is in the future, whatever that possible good is in the future, it can happen if you're an all-powerful, omniscient God without babies being born with cancer.
Questions.
Okay, well, whose
Keep
turn
going.
is it?
Well, yeah, I didn't want to stop you. That was going good, so just keep going.
All right, okay.
You've got to stop interrupting us, man.
Yeah.
Babies born with cancer.
Babies born with cancer.
Keep going. Okay, babies born with cancer. We've been through this already. We might not know a reason why it happens, but we know why we don't know why. Well, we do know why there's evil. We do know why there's disease and all that. In fact, let me ask you a question. Let's suppose that nobody could ever get a disease or nobody could die until they hit the age of 70. How would we live?
Well, if there were an all-powerful ruler of the universe, he would create a planet that was more than 15% habitable, and we would have plenty of room.
How do you know that?
Because I would do it, and anybody would do it.
So
we can judge God. We're allowed to do that.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah, we can say things like he's doing a bad job, or he's an evil God.
No,
or
you can't as an atheist because there's no such thing as good or evil.
Oh, we can talk about anything that we want. We just can't say that it's objectively
then you have no objection then. It's just your own
I do have objection.
Feeling.
I have a personal objection.
Okay, well that's fine.
There's no objective morality on which I can blame. I judge God personally, me.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah,
you can
fine.
do that, and God
you do it all too.
God gives you the authority to do that.
The
free will. Look, David, if we don't have free will, why are we even arguing here?
We do have free will.
Well, how do we have free will if we're molecules in motion?
We're molecules, we're atoms, we're patterns, and we are reacting to most of our surroundings. Some people have posited that we don't have free will. I don't really know.
Okay, that's a good place to stop. All right, now you guys go back to your corners.
No, we're just getting started.
Come back to your
You want us to keep going?
Now we're ready to do...
Sam Harris posits that we don't have free will at all, that we're all just machines.
Then why should we believe what Sam Harris writes? He didn't have free will writing it.
That's right.
Do you guys see the contradiction?
All right, got some questions.
According to him, that's true.
I'm worn out just sitting here. All right, I got some questions here. To Dr. Turek. If the universe is approximately 13.7 billion years old, is this the one you sent? Did you send that one? Is that the one I want to ask? Chuck? Okay, I'm going to ask it. If the universe is approximately 13.7 billion years old, the Earth is 4.5 billion years old, life is 3.5 billion, and the human species is about 200,000 years old, and Christianity is 2,000 years old, why would a God wait so long to create his beloved children? Why does it appear we came here naturally?
First of all, there's no waiting for God because he's outside of time. Secondly, it doesn't appear we came here naturally. That's what the whole information argument was about. It appears that there's intelligence at the very basis of life. Thirdly, we're speculating now because it doesn't say this. In fact, Christopher Hitchens asked me this during the debate, why did God wait so long? The sacrifice of Christ is retroactive. In other words, people who died prior to Christ are still saved by the blood of Christ, if we're talking Christian theology now. And so one of the speculations, and again, this is speculation, as to why Jesus came at the time he did, you had virtually universal language across the Mediterranean world, and you had a Roman road system that could get the gospel out through free creatures. So Christ had to come through free creatures because he came through the bloodline of Judah. And in fact, that's what the whole Bible is. It traces a bloodline of one particular group of people, and that's the bloodline of the Messiah. And so you've got Genesis, in Genesis you've got paradise lost, in Revelation you've got paradise regained. Everything else in the middle is the story of redemption. God enters his universe to save creatures he created because they have fallen. And since he's a just God and a loving God, he has to come take the punishment on himself because we, being sinners, can't save ourselves.
See, what you did there is you just avoided the question completely. The question was, given the fact that Christianity has existed for such a minuscule time, why has the earth existed for so long? The answer is that the earth, according to Christianity, was formed in 7 days. Christianity is wrong, but then it adapted when we found out that they were wrong. The whole concept of the long creation day is new. because we proved that there was no 7-day period.
Actually,
so the reason that there was this gap is because when Christianity was invented, the earth was only supposed to be a few thousand years old.
Actually, David, that's not true.
Actually, it is.
Augustine,
it also,
no.
it's my time to talk now, Frank. It's also...
Are you answering the question too?
Well, yeah.
No,
What?
the question was to him.
Yeah, I know. Don't I get a minute?
Well,
Yeah, he gets a minute, but then we can go back and forth
You
on
can
it
go
if you
if
want.
you can go
you
if you
have
want.
your minute.
All right.
All right, let's move on because there's a question for you.
All right.
Just let me find it. What does to Mr. Silverman, what does the atheist position, this is like multi-parts, what does the atheist position offer people? That's part one. How has it improved your life, and why will it improve others' lives?
What does atheism offer people?
What does the atheist position offer people? How has it improved your life, and why will it improve others' lives?
I think it's not. I think it has to be made clear that atheism is not here to improve lives. Atheism is not here to offer anything. Atheism is just honesty. The idea here is that religion is what offers the lie. Religion offers the false hope. You're going to live forever. You'll be reunited. You're going to go to heaven. Everything that is unjust will be justified. That's what religion does. Atheism doesn't do anything like that. Atheism simply offers honesty. If it makes sense, test it. If it works, that's the case until it's proven wrong. Now, how has it affected my life? Well, I think the answer to that is how it affects society. By removing the idea of objective morality, it takes away the freedom of people to do bad things. They have to make their own decisions. They have to make their own choices. And when they make their own choices, when they hold their own responsibilities, they make better choices. Yes, better in my opinion, but still better.
Okay. To
Wait.
Mr. Silver.
I get a
Okay,
response
you got a
to
minute
that.
for that.
I just want to point out that everything he just said there implies standards that atheism does not provide. He just talked about justice. He just talked about good sense. He just talked about something being proven. He just talked about freedom. He just talked about bad things. Those things don't exist in an atheistic universe.
Yes,
If
they
we're
do.
molecules
It's
in
all a
motion-
matter of my opinion. It's
Well,
all a
his
matter
minute.
of all
It's
of our
his minute.
opinions.
David, we cannot argue opinions because then there's no truth we're both trying to get at. The very fact that you're here for a debate is an admission that there's a truth out there that I'm saying I'm closer to and you're saying you're closer to. If truth just exists in your head, then we can't debate anything. It's just everything's your opinion.
So by definition, I automatically lose the debate because I don't believe in moral objectivism?
You don't believe in anything objective.
That's right.
Well, then what are we here debating?
The relativism. That's right.
But there's no debate if relativism's true. Everything's a matter of opinion. So nobody can win a debate,
It's
nobody
a matter
can
of
lose a
opinion.
debate.
We're trying to convince these people who's right and who's wrong.
Nobody can be right or wrong if there's no objective reality. See, that's the problem.
There is objective reality. There's no objective morality.
Okay, we need to move on. Frank,
Are you sure about that?
are any of your assertions of evidence falsifiable?
Oh, sure, yeah. Let's take information for a second. I mentioned Take Out the Garbage Mom, which is 1,000 volumes of an encyclopedia long in the small, an amoeba. If we could find natural forces that could create specified complexity, that's information, then the idea that it requires intelligence to create that information is falsified. And we can continue to look for this kind of natural laws or these kinds of natural laws that can create messages like Take Out the Garbage Mom or John Loves Mary. We can continue to do that. And if we ever find those natural laws, then we can say, well, intelligence wasn't required at all. So it is falsifiable. The problem is we've been looking, we continue to look, and in all our prior experience, natural laws do the same thing over and over again. They don't create specified complex messages like DNA.
Actually, we've proven very well that DNA is proven by completely natural processes. It's a chemical reaction. It's been duplicated and replicated. So you have been proven wrong, and people can do this all the time now. This is another untruth, Frank.
David,
this is another untruth.
There is no physical,
we have a
chemical, or
complete false
biological
record.
reason why the letters are in the order they're in. Your DNA is different than mine.
Yes.
How did natural forces come up with different DNA?
Inheritance. That's how it works.
The initial DNA, where did it come from?
Piece by piece by piece. Look, this is not something you want to argue biology, that's fine, but I'm telling you that you can look it up. I mean, read
look
the
it up
God
where?
division.
You give me a reference that where we've explained the naturalistic origin of DNA, and I will admit to everyone that you are right. You find me a reference.
Eden, Richard Dawkins, River Out of Eden.
He's explained DNA.
Richard Dawkins, River Out of Eden.
You get me the reference. Richard Dawkins is saying that aliens brought life here because he knew.
He did not say
yes,
that.
He did. See the movie Expelled.
You're telling another falsehood, and I'm really getting tired of it.
See the movie Expelled.
You know, it's against your commandments to lie.
It's on video, David.
It's a sin. It's an objective sin.
By the way,
we're moving
it's on video.
To Silverman. Why would we seek the relief of suffering without objective morality grounded in a God of justice?
Because we are a social animal. We have evolved a morality that includes empathy. We want others to feel good. That's part of the social structure that we have, and it's not unique to humanity. Other animals, especially other primates, have a morality, have empathy. The reason we want to solve problems, the reason we want to help people is because it helps us in society.
Actually,
it's an evolved structure.
Yeah, sometimes it helps, but you're presupposing now a goal to society, and you say there are no goals, right?
No.
Secondly, what you're doing there is you're smuggling in a moral law to say something is good. We want to help society. Thirdly, in many cases, when you don't cooperate, you can get what you want. You don't have to cooperate to get what you want. Ask Stalin, ask Hitler. You can get what you want by not cooperating, by killing all of your enemies. You don't have to cooperate.
I didn't say cooperation. The question was about empathy.
Yeah, well, do you think Hitler empathized with the Jews?
That's not the question that he asked.
Yeah, but go back to the question, Chan. What was the
Why
question?
would we seek the relief of suffering without objective morality grounded in a God of justice?
Because we're a compassionate race, just like so many of the others that have
Why is
evolved.
it good to be compassionate?
That's not the question.
But you're bringing elements of the theistic worldview in to defend your position. Compassion is not a good thing if we're molecules in motion.
Why would we seek relief of our fellow man? Because compassion is evolved into us.
Okay, I got two more for you, David, and then Frank, one more for you. Do you maintain that all arguments that conclude in the existence of God are God of the gaps? That's the first part. What is the difference between a deductive argument concluding in God's existence and a God of the gaps argument? Those are kind of the same thing. What's the difference between a God of the gaps argument and a deductive argument that has an inference that God exists?
Well, they're actually pretty close. First of all, I think the first part of that question is most of it is God of the gaps.
So you're saying that all the arguments that is used in classical theism, such as the ones that Frank mentioned, are God of the gaps.
Well,
I think that's what the
ontological, the refutation for the ontological argument is not God of the gaps.
Well, let's just go with the ones that were mentioned, the cosmological, moral, and teleological.
Yes.
Okay. And so you're saying the deductive and the God of the gaps arguments
In
are
order to deduce,
almost the same.
In order to deduce the existence of God logically, of a God logically, we would have to have a basis. We would have to have a reason to suspect that something that disobeys all known laws of physics exists. Now, we don't have any evidence of anything that disobeys any of the laws of physics that supposed God has. This God supposedly has a whole bunch: omniscience, timelessness, spacelessness, all-powerful. Where does that power come from? We don't have any basis to make the decision that something like that is possible. So to deduce that is not possible. It's all God of the gaps.
Okay.
Hang on.
Follow up.
First of all, the argument, say the cosmological argument is it is a deductive argument. The argument says whatever begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe had a cause. Now you need to challenge one of the first two premises to refute that argument. By the way, that is a religiously neutral argument. It simply says whatever begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause. Then we take our reasoning and our philosophical ability to say, okay, if the universe had a cause, what would be the attributes of this cause. We're reasoning from effect to cause. But if those two premises are true, that argument logically and necessarily follows.
No, it does not. It does not follow because you're positing a being that breaks all known laws of physics. You're going back to where we don't know, and you're saying, I don't know, therefore God did it. That's what the God of the Gaps argument is.
David,
right
you don't
into
understand the difference between a deductive argument and the implications of the argument.
Oh,
okay?
Please enlighten me.
The deductive argument is what I just said, those two premises and a conclusion, okay? Now, the implications of the argument is where we go to try and figure out, okay, what caused the universe? And if space, matter, and time had a beginning, which is what all the evidence shows at this point, in fact, Valenkin just did a paper.
But there is no evidence at all that space, matter, and time had a beginning that was caused by a conscious entity. You are imposing that. It becomes, you said it was a religiously neutral argument,
yes.
And you're right, until you say, I don't know, therefore God
David,
did it. Frank, there is nobody on the planet that knows what happened before the Big Bang.
Okay,
you don't know, I don't know.
Hold on.
Nobody.
Why aren't you an agnostic?
Why aren't I an agnostic?
Yeah, you say nobody knows.
Are you changing the subject right
now?
now?
No. You said, I don't know. Why aren't you an agnostic? Is there no organization that says AmericanAgnostics.org or what?
Agnosticism is a form of atheism.
It
And
is.
knowledge is a relative term. And as I said in my slides, one of the tricks that theism uses is to assume that in order for you to say no, that you have to have complete knowledge. It's a word
No,
trick.
I agree with you. You don't.
All right, we gotta go.
You don't have to have complete knowledge. I agree with you. But that deductive argument is religiously neutral. What you do with the implications
Is
and it
a
seems
religious
reasonable.
argument.
No, it is a philosophical argument
No,
that
it
if
is a
space, matter, and
religious
time
argument
had a
when you say
beginning.
a God did
It
it.
has religious
Stop,
implications, but it's
stop.
not a religious argument.
All right. David, last question for you, and then Frank, last question, and then we'll wrap it up. Ask Mr. Silverman, what is your comfort to those who suffer from natural disasters?
Well, the thing is that natural disasters are disasters, and tragedies happen. And that's why they're called tragedies. Sometimes there is no silver lining. Sometimes babies die. Sometimes loved ones die. And sometimes there's no silver lining. Sometimes it's all bad. That's what a tragedy is. We comfort people by telling them that they're not alone. We comfort people by telling them that we support them and that we're here for them. We comfort people by hugging them. We comfort people by letting them know that we are here for them. There is no solace of your baby is with heaven, with Jesus in heaven. None of that exists. With atheism, it's just a matter of I'm here for you.
You would agree with most of that, wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah, that's what, I mean, if you're an atheist, what do you say to somebody if their baby dies of cancer? Tough. That's all you
Tough?
can say.
Did you actually just say that?
I just said that.
For crying out loud, man.
That's, I mean,
Really,
there's no hope.
You're trying to make me out to be a bad person.
There's no such thing as
there.
bad people, according to you.
You're avoiding the subject again.
There's no such thing as bad
You're trying to make me out to
people.
be like a callous person, and I'm a very caring, loving person.
Why is that good?
I'm a very caring and loving person.
Why is that good?
And when somebody hurts, I comfort them.
I'm glad you do.
And that's good.
Okay, last
in
question.
my
Really good?
opinion.
Just your
Yeah.
opinion, okay.
All right, Frank, and we've kind of dealt with this, but if this is the question, if you want to go to it in a little
Okay.
more detail. If God is
That
all
was
powerful,
really rude, man.
If God is all powerful, why does he not remove evil? If he's not all powerful, why call him God?
He is all
Epicurus.
powerful, and he hasn't removed evil yet, but he will. Actually, he won't remove it, he'll quarantine it. That's exactly what hell is. In hell, you'll have free will. You know, I get the question all the time, will God send me to hell because I don't believe in Jesus? The answer is no. You don't go to hell because you don't believe in Jesus. You go to hell because you've sinned. It would be like saying you died because you didn't go to the doctor. No, you didn't die because you didn't go to the doctor. You died because you had a disease. Now, if you had gone to the doctor, perhaps you could have prevented death. Just like if you go to the great physician, you can prevent eternal death. And so the point here is that people go to hell because they've chosen to sin and they haven't chosen the pardon. But God will not force you into heaven against your will. If you don't want God now, you will not want him in eternity. So people who go to hell, which is separation from God, go there justly. There's only, if God exists, and if there's an afterlife, there's only two possible places. You're either going to be with God or without God in the afterlife. In fact, I had, let me just give me 2 minutes here, because this happened in a debate I had with Eddie Tabash, who, by the way, is a good guy objectively.
I'll tell him you said that.
And he said this to me during our debate. He said, my mother was a survivor of the Holocaust. She lived a terrible life. And she was offered the gospel and she rejected it. Is she in hell right now? I said, whoa. I said, Eddie, I don't know where your mother is now. I don't know if she had a deathbed conversion, but if she didn't accept Christ, then God is too loving to force her into his presence against her will. And let me ask, this is the question I asked the audience that night. Ladies, have you ever had a man pursue you whom you didn't want to date? Ladies, have you ever had that happen? Some of you are going, yeah, and he's sitting right next to me right now. He won't leave me alone. Well, suppose he continues to pursue, and you finally get to the point where you say, I like you, but only as a friend. Every man has heard this. Ladies, why don't you just stick the knife in and turn it, right? Well, suppose he continues to pursue, and he finally says, look, I'm going to force you to love me. Can he do that? No, love by definition must be freely given. If he truly loved you, what would he do? He would leave you alone. And
well,
that's
if
exactly
God truly loves you, he'll send you to hell because you don't believe the right way.
Let me just finish the
the
thought.
right
That's
way.
what God does. He sends us cards, letters, and flowers. He sends some kind of crazy Christian from New Jersey to talk to you. and he says...
Why doesn't God remove evil from society was the question.
Hold on, I'm not quite done yet.
He said he will.
Yeah.
He will.
He eventually
Yes,
will.
he
That's
will.
what he said.
Eventually.
Yeah.
That's your answer.
Yes, of course.
It'll happen sooner or later. Why is he waiting?
Because he's redeeming people as we go.
Why does he need to do that?
Because there are people out there that need to be redeemed, including you.
See, there's a
He's
whole
waiting.
bunch of, he already knows
patient.
who's going to be redeemed. Please stop clapping.
Stop it. Just hold it.
He already knows who's going to be redeemed. Why go through the exercise?
Because
Why
some
doesn't he
people
just
haven't
do
been
it?
born yet. That's why.
But he already has the souls. Why go through this whole exercise?
No, it's not a matter of souls. It's going to be a resurrected physical body ultimately, but that's another thing.
Okay.
God does what we would do if we were truly loving. He would leave us alone if we don't want him. And that's
send
what
us
God
to a lake of
ultimately
fire
does.
because he loves us so much.
The lake of fire. These are all metaphors for separation from God.
Metaphor.
Hey,
remember the metaphors?
Hey,
God is,
David,
the Bible is perfect, but the metaphors.
Well, how can you have darkness and fire at the same time?
You know, those metaphors are great when you really go into a self-defeating prophecy like that.
It's not self-defeating.
Self-contradicting.
It's communicating destruction.
That's
what hell is.
Self-contradictory.
It is not
And
self-contradictory.
that's why you rely on metaphor when you run into a problem.
No.
The lake of fire is very real to some Christians.
Yes, it's real. The question is, what's its physical nature? And that's the question.
A lake of fire.
How can you have outer darkness and fire at the same time?
I don't know. How can you have a loving God that sends you there if you don't think the right way?
Because it's communicating destruction, that's why.
How can you have a loving God?
It's time to go to our final arguments, okay? So here's what we're going to do now. We're going to do closing arguments. Frank has 5 minutes. He will be uninterrupted for 5 minutes. And then Mr. Silverman will get the last word and for his closing arguments.
Uninterrupted?
Yes.
Not
Until
used to
the time
that.
goes off.
That was a hint for me, I think.
Give me just a minute. If you
Chan
would.
was actually looking at me when he said the word uninterrupted.
No, I was looking at Chan, actually, because we were having a good discussion. But
Y'all
hold
having
on.
fun?
Hold on. What's that?
Said, are they having fun?
Oh, okay. It's all a relative term.
That's right.
Stand by.
You're learning. Very good. You're listening.
Yes, I am. I'm listening.
I'm still waiting for a good answer to the problem of evil, other than he'll do it eventually. But
well, as an atheist, you ought not worry about it because there is no evil.
no objective evil, no.
No, so I don't know what your objection is then. Anyway, stand by. I'm getting there. I apologize. I got too many slides.
You
here.
got too many slides, man.
Way too many slides. Look, I do this on college campuses all the time, so that's why I have so many slides. Hold on. I know it's here. There it is. All right. Okay. Yeah. Hang on one sec. Let me make sure this thing works here. No, I'm not ready. Duh. Why don't I just go back to the beginning? All right. Let me give you the whole presentation again. Hey, here it is. You guys ready? All right. Here it is. I've given evidence that reality is better explained by theism. We've got the cosmos, we have reason, we have information, we have morality, we have evil, we have science. David must refute my arguments and give a case for atheism. He just can't complain about what God does or doesn't do. David has to explain how reality is the way it is in the absence of God. David has given no arguments on how all of reality can be explained by atheism. He has only given complaints about the way the world works. Now, we mentioned that these are the 6 arguments I've been using. Let's take this from an atheistic perspective now. Atheists must believe by faith that the cosmos came into existence and the law of causality was violated, that no one created and fine-tuned the universe out of nothing. That takes more faith to believe than just someone did. With regard to reason, they have to believe by faith that brain matter from an unguided process somehow guides us to truth. How does that happen? Darwin was right about his doubt. If we just have the brain of a monkey mind, why should we believe anything we think? With regard to information, David has to say that the genetic code, thousands of books long, appeared without a coder, just instantaneously. And by the way, Richard Dawkins hasn't figured out how the code could come into existence naturally. If he has, he'd won a Nobel Prize already. With regard to morality, he has to believe there is no objective morality, which he said over and over again, which means human rights don't exist, which means atheists don't have rights, so I don't know what your organization is about. With regard to evil, he has to believe that objective evil doesn't exist, that rape and murder and child abuse are just a matter of opinion. Yet he's come up with many moral objections as the course of the evening has gone through. Also, he has to believe that science works even though everything immaterial that makes it work doesn't really exist. All the things we talked about, free will, reason, the laws of logic, the orderly laws of nature, all of these things, morality. How does science work without being ethical, without being moral? It doesn't work because we'll get bad results if we fudge the data. Now, none of these things can be explained by atheism. None of them. In fact, all of these aspects of reality have an immaterial source or foundation. Therefore, when atheists cite any of them to support atheism, they are stealing from God in order to argue against him. And that's all he's done tonight. He keeps using the language of theism to complain about God, but he doesn't provide any evidence for atheism, how this universe could be the way it is. In fact, let me be a little bit more explicit. Consistent atheists must believe that no one created something out of nothing, that the Big Bang was fine-tuned without a fine-tuner, that natural laws arose without a lawgiver, that the laws of logic and mathematics are not objective. This is self-defeating, because as soon as you try and use logic to refute something, you're using logic. If you try and deny logic, if you try and say logic's made of material, you're using logic. If you say it's not objective, what are you using to say it's not objective? Objective moral values don't exist. He's already said that. A genetic code of thousands of books long just popped into existence without a coder. That mind arose from mere matter. That consciousness and free will are illusions. And that science works even though everything that undergirds it doesn't exist. You have to have a lot of faith to be an atheist. You have to reject what is right in front of our eyes, that these things have immaterial realities that don't exist in an atheistic universe. So David can complain all he wants about religion and about the Bible and about all things he doesn't like, which he's already admitted it's just his opinion. There's not a real objective truth out there. But that doesn't give a case for atheism. In fact, it's easy to smell a rotten egg. It's hard to lay a better one. And he has not laid a better one here tonight. He hasn't provided any evidence for atheism. He's only speculated about how maybe something could be explained without reference to God, but he hasn't come up with any of it. And by the way, these arguments are not God of the gaps arguments. These arguments are all based on what we do know, not what we don't know. How
30 seconds.
30 seconds. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, I also want to point out that we're just scratching the surface here. If you really want to go deeper, get my book, get other books, get Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis, get The Case for the Creator by Lee Strobel, get Reasonable Faith by William Lane Craig and On Guard by William Lane Craig. Get books that David writes and read both sides and try and figure out for yourself. But as soon as you do that, what are you admitting? You're admitting there's a truth out there, and we have the ability to reason and figure out what that truth is. If that's the case, atheism isn't true. Theism is the best explanation for reality. Thank you very much for listening.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for coming and for being so hospitable to me and to Frank. Frank, I have not sat up here and complained about religion and not given any solutions. What I've said is that every single time an atheistic argument has been put up, it has not been refuted by a theistic argument, and every single time a theistic argument has been tested, it's been refuted. The number of times a theistic argument has been shown to show the real way the world works is 0. Okay? That's a great number. 0, like the number of times that the number of times that you accepted the fact that morality is relative. I mean, the idea is that we're all making our own choices. Now, it doesn't make it easy. It doesn't make it easy, but it is true. I did not say that consciousness didn't exist. I said morality is relative, and I said free will, some people say one thing, some people say another. I'm being honest. And the honest answer is that when you talk about what I posited, that's because that's all we're doing is positing. We're talking about what happened before the beginning of the universe. Nobody knows. The people who say they know are not telling the truth. They're making it up. They are using ignorance and positing a God that they already prefer, a God that breaks every known law of the universe and saying, that's what did it. It's exactly the same as the God of the gaps that the Neanderthals wondered about the trees. It's exactly the same as every other God of the gaps argument. I don't know. I don't understand. I am therefore going to posit an invisible magic man in the sky who breaks all known laws of physics, who did it for me. That's much easier and much more comforting than I don't know. But we're not here to be comfortable. We're not here to say, I want this. This is good because God says it. That's comfortable. This is good because I say so is less comfortable. But it's still true. If you look at all of the different versions of Christianity, all of the different versions of religion out there, and you compare our morality to what is supposed to be the source of that morality, the Bible, you will find that there is no morality in the Bible, or at least not the morality that we're looking for. And so, in closing, I would like to request that all of you read your Bible. So before you read C.S. Lewis, before you read Richard Dawkins, read it. You all own one, and statistically speaking, 99% of you have never sat down and read it, cover to cover, not with coaching, not with study guides. And I would especially invite the young people, before they dedicate their lives to a religion that they coincidentally were born into, that would be a really stupid thing to do unless you first sat down and read the Bible cover to cover and asked yourself if this is really the perfect Word of God. The Bible is a flawed document full of horrible immorality. The Bible is not any source of morality. We pick our morality. We choose what's right and what's wrong. We are the ones with the power. We are the ones with the responsibility, and we always have been. I want to thank you again for your attention tonight, and I want to thank you all for having me here. Thank you. That was fun.
Hey, let me mention one thing. You got to give David another round of applause, because when we were coming over here, He was not feeling well, and he's not feeling well right now. You might not have known that, but he's actually even sharper than he was tonight. So you need to give him a round of applause, because I thought he did very well.
I think I was pretty sharp.
You were sharp, but you were. That's what I said. But
Yeah.
you could even be better.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, brother.
Afterward, I think, Pastor, you wanted to say something before we go. These gentlemen will be out and available if you want to come talk to them. So I'll turn it over to Pastor, and then he will dismiss.
All right. Like a friend of mine says, I'm tired like I've been ironing all day. I've never ironed all day, but it seems like I'd be really tired if I had been. Thank you guys so much for being here. I thank you for coming into the Lion's Den. Appreciate that. You know, somebody said, I can't believe you're having an atheist in the church. Brother, you're welcome here anytime, okay? You're welcome here anytime. And we encourage any of you who are not, this may be the first time in this building, we're here all the time. And we'd love to interact with you, to talk with you. There's some questions that you haven't had answered, or some things that you would like to ask. My email address is chuck@broadmoor.tv. No questions are too tough. Send them to me, all right? We'll talk to you about it. We'll dialogue one-on-one, because there's no way we can answer all the questions you have about reality and about the Lord in this short time we have. We did this to help generate in you a desire to be able to be better equipped to be able to deal with these issues. And we're going to help you with that as we go along. In fact, we're going to have a Defending Your Faith crash course here Friday, May the 10th, 7 to 9 p.m., and Saturday the next day from 9 to 12 noon, where we're going to cover these subjects and some others and talk to you about the problem of evil. Because that's a hard one. It really is. That's a tough one. But I've wrestled with it long and hard, and Chan's wrestled with it long and hard, and we're ready to talk to you about that. And some of these other issues that have been brought up. So you can either investigate the faith, come as a means of investigating the faith, or comes as a means to be able better to defend your faith. And you can pick these cards up. You don't have to write it down. They're at the welcome centers. You can pick them up on the way out. Just a little square card. It'll be the only thing on the desk there. Also, if you'd like the DVDs, there are iPads on the welcome center, and you can order the DVDs there. You don't have to if you have access to the computer, because it'll be available on our website as a webcast. But if you would rather a DVD, by all means, order one and we'll get it to you. All right. Our Lord, we thank you for the opportunity to gather here today. We thank you for those who believe and those who don't believe. We thank you that you created us with an opportunity to know you. And it is our will to know the truth and to teach the truth. May that be our sole desire, and may we never be satisfied with anything less than the truth. In Jesus' name we pray.